Hi, welcome to New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your host. Today we have James Bryant, who is an actor, comedian, musician, writer, audio engineer, events coordinator, and promoter. He is the founder and host of a bi-monthly virtual spoken word event called SPOFEST, a venue for poets, writers, and authors to promote their original work. He is currently at work on a dark haiku chapbook trilogy. Find out more about Mr. Bryant by visiting www.oicstudios.com. Hi, welcome to the program, James. I hope you're having a great day.
I am, and thank you for this opportunity to talk about SPOFEST. I want to give a big shout out to Rick C. Christensen for giving me this the heads up.
Excellent. Yes, thank you, Rick, for the referral, and we'll have an excellent talk about SPOFEST and other assorted things you've accomplished. And first things first, what is SPOFEST exactly, and how did it come about?
Well, SPOFEST stands for Spoken Word Festival. In the beginning, we wanted to call this event PoeFest after Edgar Allan Poe, but that surprisingly was taken. So we were trying to come up with a name of like spoken word, SPOFEST. Oh, there we go. There we go. So that's what SPOFEST stands for. We get a few questions from time to time asking, what the heck is SPOFEST? So there you go. Spoken Word Festival. That's what it stands for.
Interesting. So it's sort of an amalgamation of spoken word and festival.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And so what we used to do these events. We're hoping to do that again in the near future. We used to do these events in person in a town where I'm living at right now, Sedalia, Missouri, home of the Scott Joplin and the Red Light District down on Main Street. We used to do these events since 2011. We've had a couple of poet laureates read at our events. The first Missouri Poet Laureate, Walter Bargen, and the first Lady Missouri Poet Laureate, Aliki Barnstone, has read for SPOFEST. So we've had some pretty good little names reading at our event. And as you know, like it is for a lot of event coordinators, we had to go virtual thanks to the pandemic. And when we did that, everything just started to take off, But what we do, we just provide a free venue for poets, authors, and writers to promote their original work.
That's an excellent thing for poets, is to bring out giving them opportunities. There's just not that many opportunities until only recently. We had the explosion of online activity and Zoom and all kinds of events going on, and I think that's been in our favor to a degree. You mentioned Aliki Barnstone. I actually know Aliki Barnstone. I've met her. She's her family's partly from Houston. Some of her family's out here where I'm at. So that's really neat. And I she's a very nice person. I really like her, and I just bought her translations of the Greek poet. What's his name? Kavafi. Yeah, the Greek poet, the Greek lyric poet. So when did you come up with this idea to do this SPOFEST?
Well, in the beginning, a friend of mine was trying to come up with a way to market me as quote unquote the blind poet of Sedalia. And yes, I am completely blind. I have been since 1989. So the idea was like, get this guy out here. He got some pretty good poetry. And we can, put him behind the microphone. It's a human interest story. Look, he's blind and he reads poetry. And, so I was like, okay, all right, but I wanted to take it a little bit deeper. I don't always feel comfortable with the limelight shining bright on me. I like to give others the opportunity to present their works and stuff. So long story short, I decided to switch the focus from me to others. And so with the backing and support of a former creative writing teacher, we started this event called SPOFEST, and we did this in Sedalia, Missouri since 2011. And at the time, it was very interesting because aside from a Baptist church and a poetry festival that I'll get to in a minute, but this Baptist church, once a year, they have people come in and read public domain stuff, Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, but there was not a venue here in Sedalia to read your own original works. And there was a great event for a while put together by a guy named Mark Pierce called the Monsterat Poetry Festival. And they had all kinds of people from all over the world coming in. And I guess because of budgeting and other stuff, they stopped doing that. So aside from that, that was really the only place you could, read your original work. And I was like, hey, if you like to read, why do this just once a year? Let's start doing this on a more regular basis. So that's what we did. And we had quite a few events in every year.
So what are some of the challenges you faced in keeping this festival going? I'm sure there have been quite a few roadblocks throughout.
Yeah, there has been, as far as in-person goes, we are in Sedalia, as I mentioned, it's a population of 20,000. So it's kind of a backwater, backwards in a way. But we were facing situations where people were wanting to charge us money to put on these events. And since I am disabled, I'm doing this all on my own, out of my own pocket. And I can't afford to pay a bar or a tavern or whatever, $50 to $100 just to do an event. And so it was starting to become very frustrating that business owners did not understand the concept of giving us a free place to do our thing. And we'll bring people to you to buy your expensive food and drink your beer, but stop charging us, exorbitant amounts of money just to rent the place out. So that was one of the challenges that we had. And since I live by myself, transportation was an issue in the beginning, but there was a great guy who was a videographer. He used to be a DJ here in Sedalia. His name is Bob Milner, and he was sort of my videographer and transportation. He had the unenviable task of carrying around this blind guy to all the events. And he's a great guy, and he helps a lot. He only charged a little bit of money to film the event, and then he also uploaded these the videos up to our YouTube channel. So those are some of the challenges that we faced in person. Now online, technology. I have screen reader software that allows me to do things on the computer, but occasionally, too often really, Facebook, because we mainly do this through Facebook. We do things through Twitter, but mainly Facebook. They're constantly changing the layout and how you do things on Facebook. And that throws me some curveballs because since I live by myself, I don't have the luxury of saying, hey, honey, come in here, help me. I just have my cat. My cat's very smart, but she's not that smart.
Cats love technology, though. They especially love to get on the keyboard when you're, doing something.
Yes. And we actually had an event back in October of 2020 that Facebook decided to change the way you go live on Facebook through Zoom. And I wasn't able to go live on Facebook on that night because I did not have enough time to figure out, okay, now what the hell did you change now? And so Facebook can be a very good, stable platform. They just need to know when to leave things alone. They need to stop tweaking or doing whatever the hell they're doing because it's irritating.
Right.
People don't like to learn how to do something that they have already learned how to do. So anyway, we're not gonna talk about Facebook too much because
it's a platform. I mean, and I agree. It's very frustrating to have them switch things around and they change the format and they have all these rules and stuff that they mess around. You don't even know what they are. It can be very frustrating. Sure, everybody that's uses Facebook and a lot of the social media would agree. It's pretty intimidating sometimes to, you know, have to relearn
Oh
all
yeah.
your, you know, it can be a real challenge to anybody, you know. So it's good that you're continuing SPOFEST, giving platforms to writers and poets and all people out there who are, you know, need a platform to promote their work. And curious, like, you know, about your dark haiku series. What is going on with that? Are you working on that now, or is there a plan with it to be published anytime soon?
Yeah, yeah, that's a work in progress. We've always liked haiku. We like the minimalist aspects of haiku.
Hmm.
And long story short, a friend of mine used to talk in a chat room on IRC, Internet Relay Chat, and he was making up some. Well, I think he got it from a website. Some haiku that quote unquote emos or goth
Hmm.
people would write, and they're just over the top, and I dug it. I was like, that's pretty funny. I can't recall some of them, but
Hmm.
I found it to be a challenge. So I started writing my own 575 haiku, but I was putting a completely different spin on it. I was trying to figure out, okay, how dark and macabre, how terrifying can I get in 17 syllables?
Interesting.
You know, um, so like I'll just read a couple here just to give you just kind of whet your appetite.
Okay.
Um, this one is called Dying on the Vine. And it goes, a crushing defeat, my heart like bittersweet grapes dying on the vine. Again,
Hmm.
a crushing defeat, my heart like bittersweet grapes dying on the vine.
Wow.
And then another one, blinded by the pain. I can't see for the Dead Sea pouring from my eyes. Blinded by the pain, I can't see for the Dead Sea pouring from my eyes. And of course, if you
Hmm.
notice, I'm using SEE and SEA. I can't see for the Dead Sea.
Hmm.
So,
Interesting. So you say
yeah.
this was inspired by sort of reading some gothic, dark, you know, haiku that somebody found in a chat room.
Yeah, yeah, basically, yeah. And I go on. I also do. I'm also a musician, so I put a bit of music under
Hmm.
my narration of my dark haiku. But I got pretty good at it,
Hmm.
and it's definitely different. It's definitely out in left field, but that's always kind of been my personality, out in left field.
Right.
And but yeah, right now the challenge is just I'm working with some illustrators to come up with illustrations for my front cover. Obviously, since I can't see, I can't come up with my own. Um, well, I could, but it'd be probably pretty crappy, you know. Uh, um, so and this is a new thing for me because I'm starting to realize how difficult it is to publish one book. I'm going to be doing a self-publish because I want to have a little bit more control on my work. But God darn, it's really difficult. There's all these moving parts that need to be in place to get a book published. The editing
Right.
process, the illustration, and all that. Um, but the nice things because it's SPOFEST, I've met a lot of really, really, really great people who have been very supportive and have pointed me into different directions, whether they're publishers or editors or illustrators. So, and at the end of the day, this ecosystem, which is spoken word, that's what that's why we're here, to help each other out, to get it to that
Right.
next step.
Right. There's a lot of competition, but then there are people like you or me who are trying to build communities and uplift people at all levels and trying to encourage this. We talked to a lot of Canadian poets and Lethbridge that were really fond of the idea of building communities and encouraging people, through these kinds of events. And I think it's great. I think there's not enough of it. I think the online presence now has been phenomenal and building communities all across the world. So what ways do you think poets have adapted to this online presence and this being having to be online rather than reading in person? from your experience with SPOFEST?
You know, this is, of course, obviously my opinion. This
Right.
whole virtual Zoom thing, and I'm sure there's other platforms that use, to host spoken word events. This wouldn't have worked if it wasn't for the pandemic.
Right.
And because of the pandemic, and because there was just so many diehard, passionate writers and poets out there, they needed a venue in which to express themselves through the written word. And if they couldn't do it in person, they had to find a way to do it. So yeah, the pandemic has forced us into this new medium, and I think it's going to be something that is going to stay around because there are some there's some benefits from it. I'm kind of new to all this, but I'm going to just assume that if you are able to promote your book by doing quote unquote virtual book tours, and you don't have to ever leave your house,
right?
Look at the gas that you're going to save, lodging, food, the convenience sitting there in your boxers and t-shirts,
Right. More comfort.
Yeah, the comfort. You're just going to be able to do a lot more promoting in a day than you would probably be able to do if you were driving in your vehicle going from city to city,
Right.
And suffice to say, you're not going to be able to hook up with all these other wonderful poets and writers out there in the world if it wasn't for the pandemic. So I really think that this is going to be a permanent part of our spoken word ecosystem, with technology getting better and better every year. Things are going to sound even better. I mean, it would be dumb if we didn't take advantage of these virtual events. Now there's going to be people out there, well, you can't compare it to in person, right? But there are just so many benefits. Again, we're highly adaptive creatures, as you know.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are going to get used to it eventually. And people get kind of zoomed out. They attend so many events, but
it should be a phrase. Somebody should come up with like a tagline, like "Get zoomed out on Zoom."
Yeah. But I mean, the ability to tune in to a reading in Sacramento, California, to a group of writers in the UK, to Canada, it's just phenomenal. We wouldn't have been able to do this unless you actually flew to these cities. But again, it's all about money, and it's very expensive to travel, as we all know. So when you can just stay home and take in all this is great. So yeah, I really think that this is going to stay. This is going to stay.
I think so too. It's very positive change, and I think it's definitely a good observation. It's much cheaper, much more efficient especially if you're on a very low budget like poets usually are, to be involved in an online community, and you still get to connect with talents and people and promote your work, and it's an excellent opportunity. And I think that's one good thing that did come from the pandemic is connectivity through the online world. We found exactly what this computer thing can do.
Yeah, and from a host and organizer perspective, when I was doing these events in person, I provided my own audio equipment, so I had to be at my event 2 hours early to set up the podium, set up my Bose PA system, test the microphone, hello, test, get all the things that you would, that the chairs lined up and all that good fun stuff, get my videographer lined up. What? You can't hear me? What the heck? Oh, wrong channel. Okay. Doing all that stuff. And oh, by the way, then there's the 2 hour event itself.
Yes.
And then after the event, then there's like an hour of wrapping all the cords and cables up. And where's that white cable? No, the green. No, wait. Oh, there it is. It's just
Right,
5 hours of. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love it. But
hmm
5 hours of that. Whereas with Zoom, I fire Zoom up 30 minutes before the event, and that's it.
right. Simplicity, efficiency. Those are the modern world dynamics we need, just to keep things moving, and just so much wasted effort it feels like, and it's confusion in these events. I've done many myself, many open mics and stuff in places, and it is very challenging to keep the equipment in order and bring it in and carry it around, and
Mhm.
it's just so tiring and exhausting. But as you said, hey, we love doing it or we wouldn't do it in the first place, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I still plan on doing the in-person events.
right,
I'm thinking about doing something in September. I still need to get the vaccination shot myself,
right.
but we'll see. But I'm thinking about doing, well, no, I'm not thinking, I will be doing probably 4 events, maybe two. Well, wait, no, yeah, maybe 2 events a year, and then every two what I'm doing now,
Mhm.
bi-monthly event on Zoom, because it's just there's no overhead involved, you just, like I said,
Right.
fire up Zoom and you're ready to go. Um
Are you
and I got a
familiar with
pretty
a poet in Arkansas named Kai Coggin?
I am
She does.
not.
Oh, she does Wednesday nights poetry readings. That's been going on. It's one of the longest. It's like probably the longest lasting regular weekly event. And they did it before the pandemic. It was just people in the local areas, and then when the pandemic happened, they opened it up, and it just bam exploded. They had all kinds of great poets. They featured for them Jane Hirschfield, and even Joy Harjo was joining them for one thing, and the possibilities. I mean, then that's another possibility with these online events. You come face to face with people that are incredible talents that you would never, that you maybe not get face to face with in person, and it's an incredible experience, to listen to somebody like Joe Harder read and be able to feel like you're face to face, and you don't have to travel 1,000 miles to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm still hopeful, fingers and toes crossed, getting
Hmm.
Joy Harjo on SPOFEST. But
Right,
she's got 4 or 5,000 people that follow her. So my message is probably way down there. And so,
right.
who knows? Who knows? But yeah, you're right. It's really a treat to, from the comforts of your own home, just fire up Zoom and you can meet poet laureates and other distinguished rather, writers and poets and stuff. And it's just phenomenal. And I mean, you would probably have the ability to connect with some of these if you did in-person events, but not to this level. I mean, social
Right.
media is just so rampant.
Hmm.
I mean, you know, I started doing these poetry events virtually since April of 2020, and our next event, June 1st, we will celebrate our 100th virtual SPOFEST reader.
Hmm.
And if you think about it, that's 100 readers since April
Wow.
of 2020. And so we'll be celebrating that with a $25 Amazon e-gift card for people that attend the event on Zoom. And I'll try to get the event link, uh, attach that to this interview if I could,
Mhm.
in case people are interested.
Right. So then this is obviously a matter of your personal opinion, and it doesn't reflect if you say one person, you're not necessarily saying another person is less of. But I'm wondering what, and you're from your experience in SPOFest, who have been some of the most interesting readers that you included.
That's a good question. Um, and I have to say that sometimes I'm not able to fully listen and enjoy some of the readers that we
Mhm.
have. Unfortunately, most of the readers, simply because um, because I have screen reader software in one ear and then the event itself in the other ear, it's hard to really pay attention, unfortunately, to the event.
Right.
Um, so, but I mean, we've had the first Missouri Poet Laureate, Walter Barton. He's a great guy. I mean, there's just so many. I'm afraid to say anybody just for fear of not including someone.
Right.
Um,
Of
but I mean,
course, you don't want to make someone else think that they weren't as exciting or interesting. But I was just curious if you had like,
yeah,
people that really kind of blew your mind or like stood out to you personally. I mean, obviously each
yeah.
person has got a different
I mean,
characteristic that stands out.
to be honest, really everybody has their
Mhm.
own unique presence.
Mm-hmm.
Each person, and I think that's the beauty, because if you go in there expecting someone to be better than the other or try to, with poetry, it's difficult because one man treasures another man's junk or vice versa. You know what I mean?
Right.
So um so it's just so difficult to really put one ahead of the other. But no, I mean, a lot of our readers have been really, really good. I keep getting comments from people that every time they tune in, there's just wonderful readers.
Hmm.
And I think another element that makes our SPOFEST event unique is that we have a Q&A segment
Right.
where we're able to learn about the writer in question. Um, I obviously love listening to the poetry and prose, but I want to also understand what motivates him or her. What do they do when it comes to writing? And I try to come up
Hmm.
with questions that that help other writers, because a majority of our audience are writers themselves, people who have read a SPOFEST themselves in the past. And I think it's great to have certain questions that maybe somebody in the audience, like for example, let's say one of the questions has to do with writer's block, and
Hmm.
I asked Dustin, how do you deal with writer's block? And
I
you
smash
come
it.
up with a complete what was that?
I smash it with a
As you
block.
smash it,
Smash with
yeah.
a hammer.
All right. But maybe your answer is just so unique, the way you
Hmm.
articulated your response. And maybe there's one or two people in the audience who are struggling with writer's block. And they're like, I never
Hmm.
thought of it like that. And that helped them get over the writer's block. So I really try to focus on questions um, that the writers are, enjoy responding to, but at the same time, they are helpful for other writers who may be experiencing, certain um, issues with writing. Like say, just the craft of writing is so unique, and I just love learning how people approach their individual style of writing. Um,
Right.
so that's another element that I think a lot of people enjoy about SPOFEST is the Q&A segment.
That is, I love the interactive aspects of that and bringing in, you start to learn more about the person and their habits as writers and what they struggle with and things like that. And I think that's true. It can be very inspiring to people in the audience, listening in, and maybe they haven't been thinking it, and something strikes them and out of the blue in the conversation. And that's a very interesting addition to a sort of featured reader or a spoken word event when you let the audience come out and say, or you come out and say, you know, what do you do here? How did you come up with this idea? What was your process like? What were you thinking? What were you feeling, etc. You get an idea of the person too, and it's very personable. I think that's a very fascinating aspect of the event.
Yeah, because I think the writer has two different voices. They have the
Hmm.
voice when they're reading the poetry and the prose, and then they have the voice, hey, it's just me. This is
Right.
what I do. I write in fluffy socks and I drink Earl Grey tea when I write my poetry. I listen to Smashing Pumpkins or Nora Jones while I write my short stories.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's, the second voice, I think really helped to make the connection between writer and audience much more
Mhm.
poignant. And when they start to like that person, not just as a writer, but as a person, I think that's when it starts to get really exciting, because then maybe these people in the audience, I want to buy your book. I got to buy your book, you
Right.
know?
Hmm.
So,
The
so,
work
so she,
speaks on its own, but also the poet or the writer is also being, being human in front of the audience makes them a little more intriguing to the audience.
yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, because you can read a book, and although you hear the poet's voice, it's a different voice, in my opinion, than the voice when they're not writing. You know,
Mhm.
um, I just, and that's the thing I try to do with my SPOFEST events. I want to make sure, because at the end of the day, pardon that expression, some people like it, some people don't. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, this event is for the writers to promote their original work.
Mhm.
But what I want to do, I want it to be an event where the audience comes back time and time and time again. So
Mhm.
that's why there was a lot of time and energy and forethought putting into this event. And I want to make sure that, in a way, it's like tuning into an NPR type of program.
Right.
Um, so yeah, and so our events are unlike a lot. There's a lot of great open mic events out there, but my event is unique. There is structure to it. There's a certain organization to it, and because of that, there's a lot more energy that I have to invest as a host and organizer, because I have to make sure that all the readers understand that this is not an open mic event where you just show up and start reading. You have to
Mhm.
abide by my rule, because if you do, trust me, you will sound like, you sound awesome. You just,
Right.
and that's not always easy. So,
Right.
each person has their own level of management,
Mhm.
but I love interacting with people. I love being able to put them in the best position possible so they can sound their very best. So I have like some really interesting guidelines. Like, I would prefer, and of course it's not mandatory, but I would prefer, if you're reading for SPOFEST, is to wear a headset or a lapel mic, because you sound better,
Mhm.
because you're closer to the microphone, and most times, you're able to you're supposed to, you eliminate some of the background noise. Um, I always mention that if you're gonna read for SPOFEST, find a quiet place and shut the door. You know,
Right.
um, let's see, show up on time, of course. Just little things like that make a big
Mhm.
difference, because if you don't sound like you're prepared, if you don't sound like you're organized, unfortunately, people are probably not going to be as interested in you and what your voice is
Right.
otherwise.
So we have
So,
about a remaining 2 minutes before I do the closing of the show, and I just, if you can maybe answer this briefly.
sure.
As someone who is legally blind, what is the secret to being so flexible and productive in your artistic activities?
Well, I was born with quite a bit of, quite a bit of issues
Hmm.
because of my disability and stuff like that. So at an early age, I had to learn to be, um, what's the word? Um, just shoot, I can't think of that word I'm trying to come up with. Um, Resilient.
Hmm.
Had to learn to be very, um, to overcome adversity.
Hmm.
And so this has always been a part of my life. And of course, because of my blindness, it caused me to be a lot more organized. So that's probably why I am so organized now, is because, I need to know where things are in my apartment. Otherwise, I'm gonna trip and fall and hurt myself or my cat. That's not good. Um, but I don't take any slack from anybody or any technology and stuff like that. It's like, I'm going to defeat you if I have to. um, because it's just me. Because again, I don't have that person here with sight that can just come to my rescue and help click on that button, that I
Right.
can't access. So it's just been a part of my personality. And as you would imagine, when I lost total sight, I had to basically learn to live again, learn how to do things and, without sight. So in a lot of respect, going blind has been a blessing in disguise. It's made me a lot more mature. It's made me a lot more productive. It's made me who I am today. And so even though it sucks not being able to see, now I actually see a lot more.
Hmm. Interesting. So it's been wonderful talking to you, James. I've really it's been insightful. You've got a great program and a very unique set of values organizing it, and I look forward to seeing what else you have to offer in the future. So thank you for joining us on the program, and hopefully we'll be in contact again pretty soon. This has been the New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering. If you have money to donate, please donate at paypal.me/nyparrot. There you will find that we are collecting money for various purposes of improving our programming. And thank you to our subscribers. Please subscribe if you have not already, and subscribe and tell others. Go out and subscribe. Let's make this a mission, 1 million subscribers to our channel. So thank you to our viewers. Thank you to our donors. Thank you to everyone who is supporting us. And this has been the New York Parrot Literary Corner. And thanks again, James, for joining us.
Thank you.